pretty exciting lineup of sessions for you today. So I'm excited to get started. Thanks for those of you that waited, and for those of you that are attending from various parts of the world at a time zone that may not be the most convenient. But of course, this is also being recorded and will be available for several weeks, months, and years for viewing. But yeah, really excited to be here. Thanks for those that can make it out. If you have any questions or if you have any comments, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll be monitoring, and so will the wonderful team that's here today. With that, let's kick things off. So on the agenda today, we've got a brief sort of closing comments from me on phase 2.3 as well, 2.3, as well as phase 2.4, which is actually already underway and crossed a milestone today. Then we'll have a brief presentation from Laura on FileDrive. Charles will be presenting about his work with Common Crawl. Fei is here to present as well with his work with the ATU-D2 dataset. And then we've got a video recording from Julien, since it's an inconvenient time in France for him to present, but he'll be talking about his work with the free rainbow tables dataset. We'll also try to keep some time at the end for a live Q&A. So if you're in the Zoom room, you can feel free to unmute at that point in time and ask any questions. But in general, we would prefer if you just drop your questions in chat so that we can ensure that everybody's questions get answered at the end of the session. You can also ask questions of the participating teams that are presenting. And so if you have any questions for them as they go through their presentation, please feel free to drop that in chat. Great, let's get started. So first up, congratulations on completing Slingshot phase 2.3. This is a pretty exciting phase. We actually had lots of data, onboarded close to 9 PB through the course of this phase. You can take a look at this graph here. It's really illustrative in terms of all the way from September when Slingshot 2 started, the way in which the rate has continued to increase. The amount of data that's being onboarded onto the network has grown substantively. Phase 2.1 was 0.8 PB. Phase 2.2 was over 3 PB. Phase 3 was close to 9 PB. And so it's growing substantively. This phase also had 300,000 deals that were made, which is massive. For those of you that are more intimately familiar with slingshot.filecoin.io, the website that we have, there are interesting cases where just loading the data takes a little longer now because there's just so much information being shared. And so really excited to share this progress with all of you. And just congratulations to all those of you that participated in this phase and made it such a massive success. Quick sort of overview for those of you that are also newer to the competition. There's still tons of data sets that were eligible for phase 2.3 and will continue to be eligible afterwards. The full list can be found at the repo for Slingshot. It's somewhere in like the mid 60s, I believe, at the moment. So Landsat 8 was disallowed from Slingshot phase 2.3 because lots of teams onboarded it already. And during the course of 2.3, we achieved similar amounts of lots of replicas of Common Crawl, Genome, Arc, Linux, ISO. And so moving forward, those will no longer be eligible, but lots of copies of those available thanks to the progress in phase 2.3. And so hopefully we can find ways for the community to engage with that data. As usual, we're also continuing to receive lots of contributions from the community. So if you have a data set that you think should be eligible for Slingshot, please feel free to open up an issue or open up a PR at that repo. The only thing that you must know is that the data set should be public, open, accessible to all. So no special permission should be required to retrieve the data that's contained in the data set. And generally, we tend to index towards data sets that have some sort of public value and can be useful for either development on or around Filecoin or within the ecosystem in general. And so data sets that include data for modeling, training, or just data that should be utilized on its own, or data that helps advance studies, research, science, tend to typically be the ones that get accepted. But happy to entertain any ideas that you have, and so feel free to create an issue if you'd like to kick off a discussion to include your data set or a data set that you have found that you'd like to encourage being onboarded onto the network. Cool. So as we discussed, we crossed 13 PB at the end of this phase. That then unlocked a total rewards pool of 165,000 Filecoin, which is absolutely massive. 25 teams were eligible at the end of this. This includes, teams that complied with all of the rules of how the data needed to be stored, which meant no team was violating the maximum number of replicas for each piece that could be stored onto the network. Teams were using at least 4 miners to store the data with, and no more than 30% of the data was being stored with a single miner. And so there was some sort of distribution of data across miners. This is a quick screenshot. I know it isn't particularly big or particularly useful, but I just want to show you that's sort of what it looks like. So if you head over to this link, it's shared in the Slingshot announcement channel. And if you haven't seen it and want to see it and can't find it, feel free to DM me on Slack. I'm Deep Kapur on Slack, and I'll send you a link to this. But just sort of to give you an idea of how it looks and how you should read it. So you have the project names, which are the names of the participating teams that are onboarding data onto the network. The deal metadata score, which is of the information that was submitted by these teams about the deals that they made. The documentation score, which is the quality of the docs that were written and provided by the team so that anybody can understand how to use what they've onboarded onto the network to ensure that it's useful for people in the future. The deal UI score, so teams for this phase actually created websites for each of their projects that you can check out. Demo videos, so these you'll actually see one of these later during this presentation, but in general, each team now has like a few minute video that talks about the brief explanation on the data, their logic for how they onboarded content onto the network, how you can find that, and how you can retrieve it and use it. And all of the videos are actually available on Voodfee and YouTube. And so if you're looking for any links, the easiest way is to head over to YouTube to find the playlist. And if you're not able to access YouTube, then there's links available for Voodfee, and you should also be able to check that out from the Slingshot website. And yeah, so happy to discuss this a little bit further. If you have any questions, I'm going to dig into a couple of the details here. For those of you, especially that are interested in participating in future rounds, definitely pay attention to this. So these four sort of criteria that I briefly discussed were introduced to the rule set in phase 2.3. So the bar in general for phase 2.3 is higher than it's ever been, and it's going to continue that way, of course. So we found that pushing teams to create this kind of content was incredibly valuable, both for the community, but also for the teams in general, in terms of how they prepared the content that was being stored and ensure that it was retrievable and usable. Teams are also initially capped at 10% of the total rewards available in the pool. And so once we exhausted and ensured that the right amount of rewards were allocated for each of the teams, with the excess Filecoin that was remaining in the pool, we actually went back, awarded bonuses for exceptional content submissions. So for documentation, UI, and videos that scored at 100% of the criteria for each of those different categories, 500 Phil as a bonus was awarded. And then whatever Phil was remaining at the end was again allocated back to the participating teams proportionally. And so that's how, if you look at the previous table, these little cells in green are actually the scores where we're like, wow, this is like excellent, met every single ask criteria. The standard was really high. And so that team is, deserving of an additional bonus. So yeah, once again, congratulations to all the 25 teams that participated. Well, more teams that participated, but the 25 teams that ended up being eligible for rewards. Like really, really well done. It was awesome. It was a privilege to get to score the content that you had created. And so thanks for the time that you put into this. Some quick takeaways. Some of these were also shared in Slack if you want to read about them in further detail. But I did want to share them at this session as well, especially as you think about your participation in phase 2.4, mostly because phase 2.4 will have a lot of the same rules and is a superset mostly of the rules that we have in phase 2.3. First up, retrieval success rate. So we talked about retrievability being a key part of how scoring would happen for phase 2.3. We did get a retrieval success rate published, but it was not actually included in the scoring for phase 2.3. And this was primarily because we didn't have enough of a sample size for all the participating teams. However, we have started publishing this on the website, so you can always check it out. If you're a project team, you can go and see what our attempts at retrieving your data have looked like. And this will certainly be a part of the scoring for phase 2.4 and likely future phases as well. In terms of documentation, retrieval instructions were typically a little bit sparse. So they didn't always include information on how to get retrieved content if it wasn't from the deal UI. So in some cases, teams shared, just go to the deal UI and get it. In other cases, sometimes teams said, just go to the network and get it. It's important to cover both the cases because clients that are coming and wanting to get the data from teams that have onboarded this data onto Slingshot could have a preference for getting data directly from miners on the network or going over to the UIs that you've built. But also, once they've retrieved these individual pieces, constructing them back into a usable data set is key. And many times that content was missing. So we encourage those of you that are writing documentation in the future to make sure that you go all the way through to helping a client reconstruct all the individual components to get a file or to get like a data set that they can actually dive into and use for whatever analysis and work that they want to do. Especially those of you that also use additional libraries or frameworks or scripts to make things more efficient or effective. In some cases, documentation was great, but in other cases, documentation for those particular things was a little limited as well. So would encourage you to share more about that, because that's also how this ecosystem will grow and this community will benefit from each other's work. Laura's team with FileDrive has also been doing some awesome work with open sourcing tooling that has made storing large amounts of data specifically for Slingshot more viable. And so her presentation will include some of that as well. Deal UIs. So I personally really enjoyed seeing some really awesome JavaScript and front-end work. And so congratulations to those of you like that put in the time to do that. It was awesome. I really enjoyed it. The main flag that I'd call out here is that search features themselves tended to be inconsistent across the site. So some cases had phenomenal search where I could put anything in and figure out exactly what I needed to go retrieve. And in some sites, the search button didn't work, or I could only search by specific fields, or I had to like make sure I got the entire text correctly pasted in. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to find what I was looking for. And then this is more of a general comment here, but individual files tended to be the way in which we expected clients to look for stuff, but a lot of the websites were actually targeted towards a user that knew exactly what piece they were looking for, which is not super intuitive, especially if a piece includes multiple files. So indexing the pieces or making it discoverable on a per file basis is probably going to be beneficial moving forward. I'm sorry, I'm rushing through some of this as well. I want to make sure we get through the rest of the content. So yeah, if you have any questions about what I'm talking about, please feel free to get to them in chat, and I'll definitely address them as we reach the end of this particular session. On the videos, also fantastic work for those of you that submitted videos. It was really great explanations, understanding of the data set, showing the entire flow that you went through. Main flag here, similar to the documentation, like most videos went all the way to showing the retrieval actually being done and like a file being obtained from the network, but then actually like opening the retrieved content, like not just showing like what's in the tar file, but putting it together and opening it up in a viable like application. So a good example would be for some people that stored like the Linux ISO database. They just show like the tar file, and then you'd pop it open and you'd see, yeah, like there's a bunch of images here, but what do you actually do with that? Because the client is going to want to do something. So like mounting that somewhere or showing just, for 30 seconds what it would look like to extract and use that to create like a VM or for anything else would probably be useful. But yeah, overall, I mean, this was one of the most difficult phases to participate in. Expectations were really high. Teams definitely met those expectations. 27 bonuses were awarded across these teams. So these bonuses, as a reminder, were based on exceptional quality of content submitted. So yeah, congratulations to those teams that also, met that bar across multiple fronts, and hopefully, you feel like your work was well rewarded, and we hope to continue seeing that high quality from you. So what happens next? Slingshot phase 2.4. So phase 2.4 actually started as soon as phase 2.3 ended, pretty much, and so there are already teams that are onboarding data. Want to call out that like today, congratulations to those that are participating. You hit the milestone for 15 PB, which is 25,000 FIL being distributed in rewards. There'll be a continued focus in phase 2.4 on retrievability. Submissions, will include deal data documentation, deal UI demo videos similar to phase 2.3. We'll definitely include like the RSR number as well. One thing we're doing though is we're reintroducing a limit of having 3 teams use the same data set. We want to continue encouraging the diversity, the information being onboarded onto the network. And of course, if you have a data set you specifically want to onboard as part of your participation in Slingshot and it's not on the list of data sets, please feel free to head over and create an issue so we can have a discussion about that. So yeah, if you're interested in participating, I would say head over to slingshot.filecoin.io to see the latest on the competition and register there to participate. If you have any questions, reach out in the Slingshot channel on Filecoin Slack, and I'll be sure, or somebody who's more knowledgeable than me will be sure to address them. So with that, thanks so much for being here. I'm going to kick it over first to Laura. So Laura has actually submitted a video that I'll be playing for her presentation, but she's also here. If you have any questions for her, please feel free to share in the chat. So yeah, I'm going to play a quick video from Laura. Laura, thanks so much for making time for sharing this with us.
Hello everyone, this is Laura from FileDrive. Welcome to Slingshot Phase 2.3 closing ceremony, and congratulations to all the participators. We did a truly extraordinary job. And thanks for inviting me to talk about our Slingshot project FileDrive. So firstly, please let me do an overview of my team. My team FileDrive has been in the Filecoin ecosystem from 2019. Currently, we concentrate on solutions of distributed storage based on IPFS and Filecoin network, and technology development in order to contribute to the Filecoin community. Now, we have already developed a data prep tool, GoGraphsplit, and the first Filecoin Plus project dashboard, fileplus.info. And as for Slingshot computation, we have been participating from Slingshot Phase 1 last year and stored over 2 PB useful data from a number of public data sites all over the world. Now we are working on the reward period 2.4 and hope to reach 25 PB milestone with other Slingshotters together. As developers in the Filecoin community, we are willing to contribute to the whole ecosystem. Since this reason, we developed the Go-Graphsplit, a tool for slicing large data size into graph slices, fit for making deal in the Filecoin network. Now it's an open source project on GitHub, and everyone can use it or create issue or PR to improve it. So we're so glad to know a number of Slingshotters use these tools in Slingshot 2.3, and we also have received many feedbacks from community members. It means a lot to us. And back to this tool, why we need it. During the Slingshot computation, we found when storing large data size, we need to slice it into small pieces to fit for the size of sector, which could generally be 32 GB or 64 GB. And at first, especially in Slingshot 2.2, we made this data into a large tarball, track this tarball into small pieces, and then we made storage deals with miners with these pieces. On the other side of storage, this way is quite efficient and allow us to store hundreds of TB data in a month. However, it brought difficulties for data retrieval. Even if we only need to retrieve a small file, we have to retrieve and download all the pieces of this tarball first, and decompose it and find the specific file we needed. Graphsplit solved this problem we faced above. It took advantage of IPLD protocol. Following the unified format data structure, it regards the data size of its subdirectory as a big graph and cut it into small graphs. Each small graph will keep its file system structure as possible as it used to be. So after that, we only need to organize these small graphs into a car file. If one data piece has a complete file and we need to retrieve this file, we only need to use payload CID to retrieve this data piece through Lotus client, fetch it back, and get the specific file we need. Besides, magnified CSV will be created to save the mapping with graph slice name, payload CID, and piece CID. And the inner file structure will be supported in the next release, which is version 0.4.1. And another advantage of this tool is it can perfectly match IPFS. Like if you build an IPFS website as your deal UI website, the inner file structure of each data piece can be shown on it. And it is easy for users to retrieve and download data that you stored during Slingshot computation. So this is a brief introduction of this tool, and more information can be found in our GitHub code base. And we do welcome your idea, feedbacks, and suggestions. And the next part is the demo video of what FileDrive did in Slingshot 2.3. Please take a look.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Laura. Really appreciate it. Congrats again for your participation in this competition. Your team did extremely well, and we're really grateful for the work that you're putting in improving the state of the network, bringing data onto Filecoin, and creating awesome resources like Go-Graphsplit for other participating teams as well. So with that, I'd like to hand it over.
Hello, everyone.
Hand it over to Charles from the FilSwan team. Charles, feel free to take over with the screen and present. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. This is Charles from FilSwan team. So it's very happy to working with you guys during Slingshot 2.3. And since lots of teams already present how to downloading and participate in the Slingshot, here we are bring to another interesting topic about how to use the data. So first of all, we are going to introduce about ourselves. We participated in the Slingshot from 1.1. In the beginning, we're working as our deep learning platform. Then we gradually go deeper and deeper. We could close with Filecoin network. So we finally started a FilSwan project. And just from last month, we are happy to announce that FilSwan now not just a project, but it's also a company. So we are going to build this Swan Cloud Computing Company to dedicate using the decentralized edge infrastructure marketplace and provide data processing based on Filecoin network. So with this phase of Slingshot, we are using the dataset Common Core, which is a nonprofit organization provides petabyte of data connected from internet since 2008. An interesting story is that they provide their own data format, which is WR format files, and with different size, tags, and information included in that website. So while we are using those data set and start to analyze it, we have some different challenges. As a client, for example, the Common Core organization, if they want to back up their data set to the Filecoin network, they will have some challenges like with Filecoin sectors are 32 gigabytes or 34 gigabytes, how can we doing chunk or merge data effectively? How can they send out batch deals without too much human interaction? How can we maintain the entire life cycle of the data processing? So as all these factors will determine if a client willing to go to Filecoin network or not. On the other side, we as a miner, we need to import a large amount of deals every day. Are we supposed to sit in front of the computer and just watch it? Or get some online deals from we don't know when and where, we don't know where it will come from. So we need some kind of tool to manage it. And we also need to record all those deals about their success rate or failure rate, just in case if we want to provide some extra service for our clients. At the end, the data consumer not necessary to be the client who want to do the analysis as a data scientist. How can we easily use this data from the Filecoin network? So in order to solve this problem, those challenges, we build out this slide to show how we are solving them. So this is usually the typical process for client update dataset. First, they need to prepare dataset. Either they get it from the internet downloaded, or they have petabyte of hard drives get ready. So they need a trunk and merge those files. They need to upload those files to the server, or they need to export it to HDD, which will be shipped to data centers like Filecoin Discovery Drive does. After they have those facility ready, they need to find a couple of miners, and then they need to make deals. This is the whole cycle, life cycle on the client side. And this is the way, if you do it all manually with the original Lutos website and the Lutos terminal, what you need to do, you need to using to calculate how many characters, how many lengths of the deal, you need to download it, you need to tar the file to combine to the size, then you need to computing the cell ID and the files piece ID, and after that you can start doing the client import. After import, you can using the client DL and using the PC's ID and start sending the deals from this place to the miner. At the end, you get the DL ID, which you can use it for saving in your database. With FilSwan, we're doing in another way about the batch deals. We open source our project on the FilSwan.com. You can check it. There's a documentation site. If you complicate it, it will give you a guide about how to do it step by step. With FilSwan, we create a Python repository, allowed you to sending deals together as a batch file. So in FilSwan, we define the deals as tasks. So with some small data set, you can put all the deals in one task. For example, you can have 3 or 30 deals in one task, and you give it a name for you. It's easy to remember. You can also give it a tag about the different data set to help you to fetch it in the future. We provided the function to download the entire data set with all the DLCIDs together. So when you have those information ready, you can use the Python tool CRI to just point to the directory which contains your car file, and you can send all the batches with one shot. On the other side, when miner got those kind of deals, instead of put an online or offline CSV importer manually, you can also download it directly from FilSwan website. It can give you the CSV file, contains all the information, or you can using the API key directly connected to the FilSwan website. It will provide the tools called using just one command, PRP install FilSwan miner. It will allow you to install all the dependencies. It embedded downloading tool, RL2, can open a multi-thread downloading from the address, which is you upload it from a client on the website. It will automatically download all the DLs and start importing as you wish. In the configuration file, you can define when you want to start and the waiting time between each task. As a data consumer, we provide several ways to organize the data. So for example, with the common crawl, we have a website to give you all the information about the deals. All the deals is combined to the CSV as we have shown it before. With each data set, you will know that which miner ID and contains which kind of file. If you click it, it will give you the detailed information about all the original file which is merged to one car file. You can also using the traditional way to download it from the command line to get all the data as well. Yeah. So the interesting part is after getting the data, what you are going to do with it. So this is the part of demo we are showing here. We have the data all put here, and you can see it very well. So then we are using the official work IO to do the data analysis. So this demo is show how can we get all the input information from one file, which has a very long name here from 2021 May data. Its purpose is search all the web pages which contains YouTube videos to see during this time frame, this month, how many websites contains YouTube videos. It will take a couple minutes for processing the data. So in the beginning, you just set up a regex formula for the Python to search, and you get the data which is downloaded from Filecoin network using the command tool to start a sub process which we are doing the decompress the data. After you decompress data, you set the dataset to the read mode. Then it will doing the matches to search through all the packages to see the content which is matches the YouTube links. So the process takes a bit of time. Then you will see that we found there was about 4,242 YouTube links matched in this website, 56,000 website. This is a way about a real data scientist, what they are going to do with it. So with the results they get, they'll be able to go to deeper about each line of the data to see, do something more like sensitive analysis or some trend analysis about the topic or category, those kind of deep learning method. This is the way we are thinking in the future, how Filecoin network can continuously provide value for the entire community. Yeah. Thanks everyone, and this is our part. I really enjoy the Slingshot and going to participate in the 2.4. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. Thanks for also being here and presenting, and continue to contribute to this competition through all the phases. Looking forward to seeing what you pull off for the next phase. Cool. With that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Fei, who worked on storing actually 2 different data sets, but he'll be speaking specifically about the A2D2 data set. Fei, feel free to take over.
Hi, my name is Fei, and I'm a home-based miner from Vancouver. I joined since the Filecoin test network. I participated in the beginning the space race, and then subsequently the slingshots in every phase so far. Since I'm a small miner, I always store my data with other miners. I find them in the Slack community of Filecoin, which they are very helpful. I will share in my desktop now. This A2D2 is the project I'm going to focus on this time. This is my project A2D2. It is a dataset from the official Slingshot list of datasets, this one. And if you go to the website, in the download section, there is a list of all the files that is available for download. These ones. And it's very simple to retrieve them because each of the dataset has the URL. On the AWS, you can just put the prefix before each file name and be able to retrieve them. Some of the files are smaller and some of the files are larger because Filecoin can only store 32 gigs per sector. So I have to slice them into different tarballs for the ones that are larger than 32 gigs. This time, after I batch download and generate the tarballs, I generate car and do the compy and then import into Lotus client database and then send the deals to the miners that I communicate with. Then I will send them a CSV that generated from my scripts. It contains all the information, especially the deal, CID, and the file name. so they can just use the import data here to import to their miner and started seeding. That's the basic process of making an offline deal. I also made a web UI for each dataset that I've been worked on. I will demo the A2D2 dataset. It's on this little website here. I focused on the data usability or like easy to retrieval. I made a navigation on the left here, which looks very similar to the official download page. It contains preview segmentations. You can find them are organized very similarly. I will just refresh this page. I think I'm having some database issues. It's
Hey, you didn't put in enough prayers for the demo gods. It's all good.
maybe I can play my video about the retrieval.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. This video is for my dataset 8. Yeah, I'll skip from the. It's less than 31 gig. I just keep them as is. There is also, of course, the generic search feature that lists all the deals that be made in this phase. If you want to search for a particular deal ID, for example, this one, it can be easily retrieved from here. I'm going to pause here. This search is also available to search by the file name or by the miner ID. So if you want to, for example, you want to retrieve, oh, it's here, it comes out now. For example, if you want to retrieve like the segmentation for the semantics, you can just search, like if you want this file, you can just search here, it will shows up, and you can see the details of which miner it has been stored with. And you can click on the miner to get a retrieval command that you can easily copy paste and into your terminal if you have a Lotus running and retrieve the whole file. That's all the website is about.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Fei, and nice work working through the technical glitches. That looks like came back just in time as well. So congrats on the great work for you as well. Search feature is fantastic. Website's great. Folks recommend you definitely check it out, especially if you're interested in seeing what a great deal UI looks like. Thanks for being here, Fei. Really appreciate it. So with that, I'd like to go into the last session from a presenting team, which is from Free Rainbow Tables is the data set, and Julien is the person who was participating. Some of you may have seen him on Slack as Sonic42. Julien, I know you can make it, but thanks so much for submitting this video that we're able to show instead. And I think for quality, I think I might just play my local copy of this instead. So hopefully you can all hear this.
Hi everyone, my name is Julien Noel, founder of Quasar. Quasar is an active member of the Filecoin ecosystem. We build our reputation on two values, being trustworthy and quality. We are trusted by protocol labs, being selected as a File Plus notary, receiving 2 dev grants, member of the MinerX program, and frequently invited as presenter for Filecoin events. We are trusted by the community. More than 400 miners have deployed Farcaster for their day-to-day activities, and by leading actors like Textile and Flick, who have a large exposure and a complete understanding of the Filecoin ecosystem, by being miners, developers, token holder, and hosting IPFS nodes. Our goal in participating to Slingshot is to onboard valuable data to the network, but also to understand client challenges. We decided to go for the free rainbow table dataset for 3 reasons. This dataset is used as a proof of concept for one of our side projects, which is an integration between Filecoin and Golem network. The dataset size is 12 TBs. It's small enough to fit our onboarding capacity. Each individual piece of the dataset is larger than 16 GBs, fitting perfectly the current Filecoin storage and retrieval capacities. Our onboarding strategy is to select miners based on their ability to seal batches in less than 24 hours. They agreed to keep the unsealed copy for fast retrieval. We jointly validated that retrieval is working, and they have a long-term commitment to the network. Finally, they are distributed in EU and US close to clients. The free Rainbow Table project is a set of rainbow tables for MD5, NTLM, MySQL, or LAN Manager hash functions. A rainbow table is a pre-computed table for catching the output of cryptographic hash functions, usually for recovering password from a hash. This curated dataset is a copy of all the rainbow tables of the free Rainbow Table project on Filecoin. Now let's go through the process we applied to store the rainbow tables on Filecoin. First, we downloaded and bundled each set of rainbow tables separately. We kept the same organization as the original dataset. If you are familiar with the rainbow tables and already have an incomplete set, you can download the remaining pieces from Filecoin. As you can see, we kept the same folder name, file names, and content as the original. To process the data, we only use standard command lines. We first create a tar archive with all the files of a specific dataset inside. Then we split it in 32 GB pieces. These files are stored as is on Filecoin. To retrieve a file, simply go to the free rainbowtables.twinquasar.io website. Select the dataset on the left pane. Select the file you want to download, see the deal ID, copy-paste the Lotus command line to a terminal, and wait for the download to complete. Repeat the process for all files you want to download. Here, we have 13 files to retrieve. As you can see, we've got retrieved all the 32 GB files we had before. It's now time to extract the rainbow tables. The process is very simple, only relying on the tar command line. All the rainbow tables files are now in the SHA1 folder. We are now going to recover a password from a hash leveraging the rainbow tables we just downloaded and the AircrackI program. First, we download AircrackI from the web. Save it to the local drive. Unzip it. And run AircrackI against the hash we want to recover the password from using 4 threads and the rainbow tables. As you can see, the password Filecoin has been recovered successfully. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Julien, for sharing your video for us. I know that you couldn't make it this time, but it was great. I appreciate you stepping out and creating the recording for us to share. Excellent work as well, showing the retrieval all the way through, as well as the application in which the files can actually be used. So with that, we're into the last part of today's summit. We kept a few minutes for Q&A, but as far as I'm seeing, actually, all the questions so far that have come in chat were addressed in chat as well. I'll probably just hold for a minute to see if there are any other questions in the room. If you're here, please feel free to raise your hand and share a question. If not, I've got 1 or 2 last things I'd like to chat about, and then we can wrap up. Okay, and so far it looks like no immediate questions. So I would love to show you guys this new thing as well that we've recently added to the site. So if you head over to slingshot.filecoin.io, so for those of you that aren't as familiar with the site, this is sort of the home base for the competition. You can see the latest statistics. You can see the rewards that are being distributed. You can check out the rules to participate, the prizes, upcoming events such as this one. But I'd like to introduce you to a new tab that was just added called Explore. And so this is Slingshot's Data Explorer, where you can check out the data that's being onboarded onto the network in the form of the data sets that are eligible, but through the various projects that are storing that data on the network. And so you can discover where you can actually obtain the files for yourself. So we could probably grab one of these. So perhaps we can grab Linux ISO. This one is, as you can see, being stored in a bunch of different geographies, lots of different flags here being covered. And the nice part about this one is you can see file names are familiar, Debian, different versions of it, Fedora. And so based on this, you can actually use this as an explorer to find the exact ISO file that you'd like to download, see which CID it fits into, and figure out where the miner is that is near to you that you can actually grab this content from and run a retrieval. So this is still just recently been added, somewhat work in progress still as we continue to flesh this out. But if you have any feedback, suggestions, ideas, and ways that we can make this useful, as well as just generally ensure that the data that's being onboarded onto Filecoin is being used, as Charles was talking about, just making sure that people that can use it have access to it and can benefit from it is absolutely paramount as we continue to increase the amount of data available on the network. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you for attending this Slingshot Phase 2.3 closing ceremony. Thanks to those of you that participated in the chat as well and asked questions. For those of you that are watching the recording, thanks for making the time to view this recording. If you're interested, again, head over to slingshot.filecoin.io or join us in the Slingshot channel at Filecoin Slack, available to answer any questions or help you in your journey in participating in the Slingshot competition as we all work together to make the Filecoin network more useful and more productive. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. Have a